Hey guys! So today, like I said, my make one thing today was gonna be to make cinnamon rolls. So Emma and I are gonna make some cinnamon rolls. We looked up a recipe. We're gonna get to it. That was Emma in the background, running away. So,
I don't know these kids.
So I'm gonna switch it around here so you guys can see the ingredients that we're gonna use. So first off, we gotta make the dough. So we'll use some flour, sugar, salt, yeast, whole milk. We're not gonna use cheddar cheese in it, it's just sitting there. An egg and butter. So we're gonna combine all those together, and that is gonna make our initial dough for the cinnamon rolls. So this is the milk and the butter mixture that we're going to put into the dry ingredients with the yeast. And so yeast is a bacteria, and just like you, yeast likes to be cozy. So if the milk mixture is too cold, it won't activate the yeast, and our cinnamon rolls won't rise, and they'll be like tiny little gross rocks. But if it's too hot, then it'll kill the yeast, and sort of the same thing will happen. So here's hoping that I can touch the outside of the pan, so that's probably a good sign. So here's hoping I didn't make the yeast or the milk too hot or too cold for the yeast. All right, so what you can see here is kind of a mess. It's the beginnings of the dough, and it's not quite put together, and that's because we need to knead it. So I'm going to spend the next 3 minutes or so kneading it, and it'll bring everything together into a nice little dough ball. So here we are about halfway through kneading, and you can see it's coming together. So with kneading, switch hands here. I'll do it with my right hand. So when you're kneading, you want to like pull it over and like push it away from you. Pull it over, push it with the heel of your hands. And that's going to develop the gluten in the dough, and gluten is what makes dough, like breads and stuff, so it makes them kind of like springy to the tooth. So I'm going to keep doing this, adding a little bit more flour as I go, as it gets sticky, and I'll be back in a couple minutes with the finished product. So here we go. You can see it's coming together in a nice ball. It's pretty like heavy for its size. It's heavier than you would think it is, because it hasn't risen yet. So now it's just like this dense ball of like flour and sugar and stuff. So the recipe that we chose is supposed to be pretty easy because it actually only does one rise after you actually shape the cinnamon rolls. So I'm going to roll this out with a rolling pin, and we're going to put in the filling, and then we'll roll it up and actually shape the cinnamon rolls. All right, so here are the fillings, or the ingredients for our filling. So we've got butter, cinnamon, white sugar, and then brown sugar. And so with brown sugar, you know, you gotta pack it down into the measuring cup, so it'll actually measure correctly. If you just pick it up loose like regular sugar, then you actually aren't going to get as much sugar as you're supposed to. So when you dump out your brown sugar, it should still maintain the shape of your measuring cup that you put it in. So I'm gonna whip these up together, and then roll out the dough, and we'll get this added and roll them up. Here's a picture of where I made a huge mess with the cinnamon and sugar. Okay, so I got the filling made, so it is, I mean, it doesn't look super appetizing now, but it's gonna be really good in our cinnamon rolls. So I'm gonna roll out the dough. So I let it rest for a minute or two while I was making that. I covered it with a damp paper towel so it didn't get too dry. So now I've got flour on my surface, a little bit of flour on top of that, and with the rolling pin, just gonna kind of back and forth, always moving out from the middle. You want to kind of push this towards a square-ish type shape as much as we can. I'm gonna move that because it's like in my way. Here we go. There we go. I'm just gonna apply some pressure, keep it going, and you can kind of see in the middle there how it kind of drags, so I can see that it's starting to stick. So I'm gonna flip it over and spread around the flour a little bit so that way it's not sticking. So from here, you just want to keep kind of moving it out in all sides until you get it big enough, thin enough. It's springing back a little bit when I roll it out, and I think I probably just should have let it rest a little bit longer before I started rolling it out, but it's not really that big a deal. I can just keep working on it. Flip it over again. Start getting real soft. Keep rolling it out. Now, this batch is going to make kind of a smallish batch of cinnamon rolls. They're not going to be gigantic ones, or not a lot of them. I think we'll make them big ones instead of a bunch of little ones like they have in the recipe. So that'll be nice. Everybody likes big cinnamon rolls. Okay, so I've got the cinnamon roll dough all rolled out, and I put the cinnamon, butter, and sugar mixture on there. So you can see that I put it all the way up to the edges on this bottom part, and then not all the way to the edge on this part, because I'm going to roll it from here on out. So if I were to completely cover this part with the butter, sugar, cinnamon mixture, then it wouldn't stick to itself. So we're just going to start from here, and we're going to want to make pretty tight roll, smoothing out as we go along here, making sure, keeping it good. Your edges are always going to be kind of weird. It's just the way she goes, boys. Keep doing this. Okay, so now we're down here to where I have the edge. So now I'm just gonna do that, and then we're gonna kind of, what are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Do this. It's still got a lot of flour on it, so it's not really gonna want to stick too well. And then we can take this and we can just kind of smooth it out. The edges are gonna be real weird. It's just how it goes. Pinch those in. Okay, so we should be able to get maybe 8 really good sized cinnamon rolls out of that. So we'll go ahead, we'll get our pan ready, and then we'll do the cutting. And then for this recipe, we just let it rise after we cut it. So, okay, so I have my pan here that I'm gonna let my cinnamon rolls rise in. I sprayed just the bottom of it, not the sides of it, because if you spray the sides of the pan, then the dough won't have anything to climb onto as it rises. It'll just be like too slippery. For cutting the rolls, so you could use a knife, but if you use a knife, I'll just do it here on this side, you can see it just kind of like smashes it down, and then you get kind of like a smashed like cinnamon oval. Nobody wants a cinnamon oval. So the trick to getting good cinnamon rolls is actually dental floss. So you want to try to use unflavored if you have it. I don't have unflavored, so it's got a slight mint flavor to it, and that will be a flavor experience that we'll get to enjoy tomorrow when these are done, if it makes a difference at all. So you just kind of scoot your dental floss underneath there, figure out how big you want it, and you bring your dental floss together and just here we go. Keeps it in a perfect roll. So we'll just see how many of those we can get out of this, and we'll put them all together in the pan, and we'll cover it up with saran wrap, and we'll let it rise, and I think it's supposed to rise for like 30 minutes to an hour. So we'll be back when those are done. So we went for a walk, and I thought we would have plenty of time for the cinnamon rolls to continue proving while we were gone. They got a little bit too much time, so they're just gonna look a little bit crazy, but I'm sure they'll still taste fine. We're gonna put them in the oven at 375 for about like 25 minutes or so. All right, so these are done now, fresh out of the oven. So one way that you can tell that baked goods like these are done is if you take your impeccably clean hand and just kind of scoot that away. See how that looks like bread in there? It's not like doughy or undone. That's how you can tell it's done. So I'm going to let these cool down a little bit, and I'm going to make just a really simple kind of icing with powdered sugar, a little bit of milk, and some vanilla, and we'll glaze that on top, and they'll be pretty tasty.